Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Susan, MacKenty, Brady. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting and Life Unscripted. I'm so grateful to have you here today. You're going to talk about your upcoming new book, Arrive and Thrive, 7 Impactful Practices for Women Navigating Leadership. And that can be put to the use for anyone, whether you're a woman or not. And so I'm grateful to have you share your inspirational stories on leadership and how people can put that to use, because it's been difficult for businesses the past 2 years, navigating this weird time with a lot of the businesses working remote, hybrid, and how do you pass on your vision and your leadership ideals to your staff and your support staff and associates. So welcome to Savvy.
Thank you so much.
So what prompted you? You have worked for many years in the corporate arena, and now you've written books. You've been hitting the speaker market. You're a top best-selling author. But what was really your impetus for writing on leadership in particular?
You know, I feel like until this last book, this is my second collaborative work, I felt like I was an accidental speaker and an accidental author. I kid you not, I just happen to be in the business of leadership development and always on the, either a business development, strategic marketing, or delivery sides. And I, about 10 years ago, took to speaking out about, in particular, how to return to a place that's kind of our healthiest mental space at work, so that we can work with others in a healthy way, and not say or do things that we might regret, and then also hold ourselves in warm regard when we make mistakes, because we're human, and especially women, our inner critic can run rampant. So I started writing about 10 years ago about this topic, and this book definitely is kind of a new, full-on new season in my life, because I dedicate this to women and their allies everywhere who want more than survival, who want more than arrival, who really want to thrive in their life. And so it's been a joy to do, and to work with 2 amazing fellow authors, in Janet Foudy of Deloitte and Lynn Perry Wooten of Simmons University.
And, I love that you say that, because I think that's what happens to a lot of the people that come on Savvy. They start a business late in life because they're like, is this it? Am I just going to sit in a corporate existence, or my kids are off to college, I don't need to be at home as much? What's next? And you don't want to just exist and get by and pay the bills. You want to thrive to your fullest potential. And that's truly what I hope for all Savvy listeners, that they can reach that potential inside of them and pull it out in whatever your gifts and talents are. Where do you start in your book as far as people getting in touch with their leadership? Because some people will say, I'm just not a leader. I just want to do this business thing, but I don't see leadership in me.
So Christina, you already said it. So it's where you start is getting in touch with your gifts and talents. So the first practice in our 7 practices is investing in your best self. And by that, we mean, coming to understand, what are your gifts and character strengths, and what are your strengths that you've developed over your lifetime? Where did those strengths and gifts fall into service of others? So where do you feel called to give of yourself? And then when those things come together and you're feeling joy and vitality, I believe you're in your best self zone. And the object of the game is to know her, Velcro to her, love her up, be very clear about when your light shines. And then when you get kicked out for every reason imaginable, because we're human and we're walking through life and we get pummeled, sometimes in micro ways and macro ways, just by living, like pandemics, et cetera, knowing how to get back there as quickly as possible. So I'd say doubling down, and now is a really good time to revisit yourself, because there is no arrival, and there's no arrival at a fixed state, as like we're constantly on the journey of maturing and growing and learning more about ourselves, and we change over time. Our interests change over time.
Yes. Yes, I love that you say that because my husband is a pilot, loves flying. I think will always love flying, but he's recently gotten very interested in weaponry and understanding guns and stuff like that. And he's thinking of becoming a teacher in that because he's already been a teacher in flying. And so you could pass on that same correlative, I'm a teacher. Now let's just apply it to teaching something different. But he never would have said 10 years ago, I want to teach people how to shoot guns or whatever.
Right.
But now it's a new passion. So you do change as you get older and discover new things and new talents. And what's interesting, Susan, even more so, is you said to me just before we hit the go button that a lot of what you're doing was already inside of you. You're already using your gifts and talents. It's just you have to identify, how am I using that in the world in a place of service? And what does that look like? Because I think we just do what we're naturally good at and don't even notice it.
1,000%. So listen, I have to be honest, probably I wound up accidentally more so in the women's leadership world than because I consider myself a teacher and student of leadership and have been since I can remember, since when I was a kid. And what I found out was, the world was different for me, which I believed in meritocracy until I was in my late 30s, early 40s, when I realized my male peers were receiving what I was doing differently, and I perceived them as doing the same things, right? And I thought, oh my gosh, maybe the jig is rigged here. Like, it's not the same for me. And I realized I need to start talking about this because I'm more prone, and so are other women, to feel like I'm not enough, or I'm not doing it right. And
well, let's go there. Can we go deeper into that? Because it's interesting. I've seen men kind of reach out, and when they want to do a deal, even if they feel they're not ready, they never think, oh, I'm not good enough to do this deal. They just go out there and push to do something maybe that's not even possible, and they're like, oop, it worked. But why do we hold ourselves back and think I'm not enough? Where does that come from?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I think it's different for everyone. I think there's different layers, right? I do think there's some deeply held beliefs about what it is to be enough as a woman, if you identify as woman. And it's really hard to live up to because we're sold a bill of goods that, we could always be thinner or prettier or have the right things or have the right love. There's a whole construct about the working world and leadership that wasn't developed really for us and for this in mind. It's conducive, when you think about the work world, it's really conducive to somebody at home running the home life and somebody at work running the work life. And those systems still exist today. And women are trying to kind of break through and make it work. And so what I see, and I know it's true for me as well, and what the research bears out is that we've got a doing too much problem on our hands, right? Where we spread ourselves way too thin. I call it overrowing. I wrote about this in my last book. And I think talking about it, some of the practices in Arrive and Thrive, I think are evergreen practices for frankly, all genders. When you talked about your husband, moving from airplanes to guns, it made me think the thing that's true about all the practices in Arriving and Thriving is curiosity. And if you present with a learning mind, and if you really want to know about something or about someone or about yourself, chances are you're going to arrive at thriving more easily. And so, I think once you discover, here's what I would call out to most women in particular is once you look at and say, gosh, I'm not going to tell you what it means to thrive. And if you look in the mirror and really feel like you're really not, that's worthy of exploration because you deserve to be on your own leadership journey. I think we women forget that we're in our own lives sometimes because everybody else gets us first, right?
Yeah, your kids, your husband, yes. Yeah, you keep putting others first and then you realize, hey, where did I put me in this? And that's what happens to a lot of women, I think, when they enter into the second half where their kids leave and they're like, okay, now I don't know where I am without the mommy. Yeah.
And I think there's I have to tell you, I had the very great pleasure of meeting Gloria Steinem this week. And we had a talking circle and we talked about this very dilemma of, identity throughout our lives, if we are mothers or not, if we're married or not. and how we relate to ourselves and to work. And I think it's still more complicated for women. And you know, I also think it's complicated for men. I just have to say, I'm beginning to speak to a lot of male leaders who are bravely wanting to connect. And I say brave because now I have like women's leadership moniker. And I'm first and foremost, I think I just want everybody to relate to their life in a way that makes them feel good about themselves and that they're conscious of their impact on others, because I think there's a cry for empathy and for connectivity and frankly emotional intelligence, and a lot of leaders are really excited about whatever it is that their field is or their expertise is, but they forget that leadership is a social construct and that it's a relationship, you know.
Good point. I love that we're going there and talking more deeply about that, because I think one thing I've noticed about really good leaders that I've had in my life is that there is that really connection with the human that you're working with, because we're all human. And so if you come at it like, you know, just numbers on the page and we got to reach this quota, you know, and you, by all means, sales group, if you don't reach these numbers, we're out. That's not looking at the fact that these are human beings you're dealing with, and sometimes they're going to be better in some months than others. And just to say, all right, you didn't reach your quota, you're sucking, that's not going to bring out the best in your group. Really looking at who you're working with from a human perspective and building the relationships. Can we talk a little bit more about what you found as far as what good leaderships exhibit in the realm of relationships?
Well, you know, I think the pandemic really gave us an opportunity to separate human resource and human being. And almost immediately, because we saw into each other, many of us saw into each other's homes, we were confronted with human beings, and human beings, we want to connect, we want to be cared for, we want to be heard, we want to feel valued. And it's not just about getting the work done. And I know for me, because I'm super driven and I tend to want to stay on task and on milestone, I need to be thoughtful about connecting with the human being and checking in, especially now, because I think people are still, you know, different areas of the country, obviously, in the world are kind of back. But I think a lot of people are exhausted. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of mental health issues on the rise in the workplace. I think leaders are having to contend with really hard conversations, be that about race or be that about inclusion or mental health or well-being or where to work or, you know, all of these preferences and all of these dilemmas, most of which are human being oriented, that impact how resources get the job done. And so if ever there was a time for leaders to start paying attention to the relationship that they have with the people in their organizations, now's the time to scale up people, because I think followers and workers will defect from leaders who they don't feel valued and seen from.
So basically what I'm gathering most from you is that great leaders really connect and pay attention to the human side of the people that work with them, and not just like the bottom line. And you know, here's something disturbing I heard from a recent company that I'm close with, is they were working remote for the past 2+ years, and they're now calling their people back. And my friend said they sent a memo to them saying, well, make sure now that if you do work from home on given days, that your kids are hidden, doors closed, you look presentable, and there's no doggies barking or whatever. And, you know, look professional, because not everyone gets to stay home once in a while, la, la, la. It was really kind of harsh. And I thought to myself, well, you know, now what? Now it's like, come back to the office, pretend nothing happened for the past 2 years and be like you used to be before, a robot. Right. I'm like, that's just kind of throwing away the lessons of the last 2 years. I was just like, well, they kind of didn't get it.
Yeah, I mean, there are some leaders who might have heard what you just said, who are listening, who would say, that sounds right. I mean, I would love it if everybody could just leave everything else aside and we could get on the business of producing the results that we're here to produce. The dilemma is that we want every human being, we want their discretionary best effort. We want them to be engaged. We want them to bring their full self to the table. We want them to be given their all. And when we shut part of them out that they need to deal with, it makes it harder for them to give their all. So it's in companies' best interest to figure out, okay, how do we help people bring their unique self to work and make them feel like they belong, not so everybody feels good, but so that everybody feels like they can do their best in the working position that we find ourselves in,
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you say that, because things are not always optimal. It depends on what's going on in any person's given life. As we saw the past 2 years, we've all kind of been on the same path of difficulty, in that we've all been often trapped at home and couldn't go out. So we're all having to work from Zoom or whatever. But to realize that with that, a lot of parents also had to be the teacher of their maybe several kids at home, as well as get their job done in their corporate arena. So there's like now an added mommy, teacher, and worker bee all added up together is a lot on people's plates. So yeah, and I think what I saw from the companies I worked with is that I found that people actually came to the table and gave exceptional best that they had done even prior to the pandemic, that they pulled out of themselves a greater version of themselves just, to go forward, which I found amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a craving to get back to something that feels normal,
Yeah.
good. I think everybody's trying to figure it out, right? And so the practices in the book, what we wanted to do was give a distillation of the best wisdom that we had, and then we interviewed a bunch of CEOs to concur and to weigh in and to give us their wisdom. We call it Thrivers Wisdom, to help leaders, frankly, at all levels, come back to some tried practices like fostering resilience and cultivating courage, and even making a healthy team environment. And what does that look like now? Yeah. Like these have to be intentional if we want to have thriving workplaces. Yeah. We got to start with the individual.
Yeah. And I love that, because it really starts with each individual person. So if you own a business, you're a business owner, it starts with you. And then it starts with all the people that work with you, each of them coming into how can we make this an intentional place that everyone can't wait to come and give their best at. I love this chat, Susan. We could go on for many more hours, but where can people get a copy of your book and find out more about you? And I know you do speaking events. So
yeah. Thank you. So certainly the book is available on Amazon and other retailers. ArriveandThrive.com is launched. I am the CEO of the Institute for Inclusive Leadership at Simmons University in Boston. So inclusiveleadership.com has lots of information and tools and resources. Arrive and Thrive is our latest book. And even if you're not doing all of what we just talked about with others, you can start with you. So I would implore people to take a look.
Yes. And so I think your book would be a great place for people to start, read it, and see how I can implement or start to get curious about yourself. Like, what are your gifts and talents? I found many years ago when I had started my own business, my mentor said, so what are you best at? What is your gift? I forgot. It's like you don't think about it. You just get on your hamster wheel, go to work, do this, do that, and you don't remember what you're even good at. So it's great to just sit down with yourself from time to time and just take note.
Yeah, what lights you up?
Yeah.
I can tell you're lit up doing this, which is so fun to watch.
I love this stuff. I really, really do.
I can tell. It's so great. So great.
Well, thank you so much, Susan. It's been a great pleasure chatting with you today on Savvy Broadcasting. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Christina.
You betcha.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.